Collective Nouns for Humans in the Wild by Kathy Fish. A group of grandmothers is a tapestry. A group of toddlers, a jubilance. See also a bewailing. A group of librarians is an enlightenment. A group of visual artists is a bioluminescence. A group of short story writers is a Flannery. A group of musicians is a band. A resplendence of poets. A beacon of scientists. A raft of social workers. A group of first responders is a valiance. A group of peaceful protesters is a dream. A group of special education teachers is a transcendence. A group of neonatal ICU nurses is a divinity. A group of hospice workers, a grace. Humans in the wild, gathered and feeling good, previously an exhilaration, now a target. A target of concert goers, a target of movie goers, a target of dancers. A group of school children is a target. Hello, Mr. Anderson.
Hello, Mrs. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson is going to help us talk about collective nouns of humans in the wild really quick. So, what was the impression you got of it?
Very good.
It's real good.
That was a really interesting poem.
Sorry, I'm trying to balance this on my knees.
Made me think of what we would call. Oh, video still there?
Yeah, it went into
It made me think of what we would call your class.
Oh, how to describe grade 9. So if you guys aren't familiar, a collective noun is a word you use to describe a large group of something. So like a herd or a flock. Did you know a group of crows is a murder?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
A murder of crows.
Murder of crows. And so it's kind of playing around with all these different groups. So a group of toddlers, a group of grandmothers, a group of poets. What would be the word that we would use for them? And this is what she's saying. But it changes in the end.
It does.
So what did you get from that?
Well, the first thing I realized is at the end how it changes. So that word or that collective noun that we use to describe a group of people or a group of things or nouns isn't necessarily permanent, right?
Oh.
So the fact that it can change tells us that it's different, right? If a class is being very obedient or acts a certain way, then I might use a certain word to describe that. But then if they're a bunch of crazy kids, then I might use shenanigans as a word to describe them. So I think that noun is ever changing, depending on what you are trying to emphasize about that group.
Yeah. And what do you think she's trying to emphasize?
So at the end of this, she starts using the word target. Now, where do we hear the word target? Typically, we hear that word when we're doing target practice or we're shooting at something. It's a target. So the fact that concert goers, it becomes a target. Movie goers become a target. Yeah. Target of dancers. All of these things, if you have paid any attention to the news, have all been places where there's been mass shooting.
So you want to hear something terrifying and interesting? Guess how many mass shootings there were in the United States last year?
I'm going to guess over 1,000 because I bet it's a lot.
432, but you're close in the death. 1,600 deaths from mass shootings last year.
Crazy.
So the author is actually a teacher. So you can see why she's writing this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, heavy poem. It definitely makes you think a lot.
Yeah.
Of like, even now in this COVID situation, if we can't gather, what do we call humans? Like, what are we together but separate?
We're a quarantine.
We're a quarantine.
But it makes you think, like, even if you think about how she started the poem, it was nice and light to capture you and to get you invested into the poem. And then as you move on, all of a sudden it gets heavier and you realize what the true intention of the poem is.
Yes, all of a sudden it switches. You're like, whoa, a target.
If you were to start with the target part, I don't think it would be nearly as effective.
I agree. Do you want to teach this class? You should.
Math guy.
Thanks, Mr. Anderson.
Toodles.